Chapter 1172. It's so beautiful. Shengwan Linglan was completely stunned. He had never imagined that there would be such a beautiful scene hidden in the Roman forest. The sound of the waterfall couldn't be heard from outside the cave. It must have been isolated by the rocks. Shengwan Linglan took a deep breath. It seemed that the air here was very comfortable. I found this place when Yin Jian ran away from home to find him. As Jingyu spoke, she waved at Shengwan Linglan and climbed down from the vines. Yin Jian ran away from home at the slightest provocation. I worried about him a lot when he was young. Jingyu mumbled helplessly. Ha! Shengwan Linglan laughed when she heard this. It was as if she could imagine how Jingyu, Yin Jian, and Yin Feng, the two gray wolves, got along. Over here. Jingyu jumped onto a rock and waved at Shengwan Linglan. I used to come here often. I almost forgot about it after not coming for so long. Let's go to the hot spring. Jingyu led Shengwan Linglan to a clear pool. The water was steaming hot and flowed down from the mountain. On the other side of the waterfall, Jingyu and Shengwan Linglan took off their clothes and soaked in the pool. The steamy pool made Jingyu and Shengwan Linglan's hair wet. They squinted their eyes and looked like they were enjoying themselves. However, just as the two of them were enjoying themselves in the hot spring, they suddenly heard other sounds. Jingyu suddenly straightened her body, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. Someone's here. As Jingyu spoke, she suddenly got up from the water and pulled a piece of clothing to cover her body. Shengwan Linglan also hurriedly stood up. Shengwan Linglan didn't doubt Jingyu's hearing at all. Jingyu and Shengwan Linglan put on their clothes and walked out from behind a book. They were surprised to see two people on the rock. It seemed like they had just jumped down. Xiao Chun. You guys? Jingyu and Shengwan Linglan hugged their clothes and looked at Xiao Chun and Xing Er, who were both dressed in black, standing on the rock. They were stunned. How did the two of them find this place? However, when Jingyu saw the two wolves walking out from behind Xiao Chun and Xing Er, her face completely darkened. Damn! Since when did Yin Jian and Yin Feng treat Xiao Chun so well? Jingyu's eyes were filled with surprise. You guys are really here. Xiao Chun and Xing Er saw Jingyu and Shengwan Linglan's disheveled appearance and were very surprised. They frowned slightly and looked at the two people's exposed white thighs and exquisite collarbones. Xing Er. Xiao Chun frowned slightly and called out coldly, Yes. Xing Er responded and immediately went forward to grab Shengwan Linglan's body and carried him to the other side. Hey, where are you taking me? Shengwan Linglan's eyes were filled with panic. He quickly raised his hands to grab Xing Er's neck and was directly carried by Xing Er through the waterfall and disappeared around the corner. Jingyu stood in a daze and looked at the two wolves, Yin Jian and Yin Feng, who howled and turned around to scamper up the mountain from the bushes. They then disappeared out of the cave. Only then did her eyes fall on Xiao Chun. Chapter 1174. The body pressed against Jingyu's, and incomparably ambiguous sounds rang out in the hot spring. There was also Jingyu's suppressed moans and Xiao Chun's panting. The two bodies were extremely entwined in this misty hot spring. This was a scene of spring. On the other side, after Xing Er took Shengwan Linglan away, he brought him to the other side of the waterfall before stopping. When Shengwan Linglan landed, his eyes were filled with anger. What are you doing? Shengwan Linglan glared at Xing Er and asked angrily. Nothing. Xing Er silently took a step back and put some distance between him and Shengwan Linglan. Probably because Xing Er walked in a hurry, he tore open Shengwan Linglan's clothes a little. The exquisite collarbone of Shanghai Linglan was very different from the Shengwan Linglan he saw in the past. Xing Er's eyes were burning. When he saw Shengwan Linglan's collarbone, his body stiffened, and he suddenly turned his head away. Ah, rogue! Shengwan Linglan noticed the change in Xing Er. He looked down at his clothes, and his face instantly turned red. He quickly turned his head away and tidied up his clothes with a red face. When he turned around and saw that Xing Er had also turned his back, he heaved a sigh of relief. However, the redness on his face did not fade at all. Why did you bring me here? Shengwan Linglan looked around and asked Xing Er in confusion. Master wants us to not disturb him. Xing Er's face was also faintly red as he said, Master wants us to not disturb him. Eh? Did Xiaochen say that? Shengwan Linglan was slightly taken aback when he heard this. He then asked in confusion, No, but that's what Master wants. Second Xing replied resolutely. Shengwan Linglan looked at Second Xing's face that was tense from beginning to end. She was inexplicably unhappy when she heard him say Master and Master again and again. You two really have a deep relationship. Shengwan Linglan turned his head away coldly and said in a strange tone. Xing Er was silent. Shengwan Linglan glared at Xing Er and said unhappily, What do you mean by not saying anything? Nothing. Xing Er replied again. You. Shengwan Linglan's face darkened. This damn man. Either he doesn't speak or he speaks. It's infuriating. What are you still standing here for? Go away. Shengwan Linglan walked to the side angrily. Xing Er frowned when he heard this. He had no idea how he had angered Shengwan Linglan. He turned around silently and walked out. Shengwan Linglan saw that Xing Er really left just like that and was instantly enraged. Xing Er, don't come back if you leave. Shengwan Linglan roared in exasperation. Xing Er suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Shengwan Linglan. What are you looking at? Didn't I tell you to leave? Shengwan Linglan saw that Xing Er had stopped in his tracks obediently and turned his head away arrogantly. He looked as if he didn't want to see him. Xing Er's face darkened completely. So, should he leave now? Or should he stay? Xing Er stood there silently for a while. Then, he slowly turned around and walked toward Shengwan Linglan. Shengwan Linglan looked at Xing Er, who was walking towards him step by step, and stepped back in fear. What was that dark and expressionless face doing? Chapter 1175. However, the moment Xing Er's hand touched the softness of Shengwan Linglan's chest, the seductive look in Shengwan Linglan's eyes disappeared completely. Her body trembled violently, and she raised her hand to push Xing Er away. She shouted angrily, Ah, you! Xing Er staggered. He looked at Shengwan Linglan's swollen lips and messy clothes. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. He hurriedly said, I'm sorry. Then he turned around and rushed out. He plunged into the lake, allowing the icy waterfall to wash over his body. Ah! Shengwan Linglan watched as Xing Er jumped into the lake. Her heart skipped a beat. When she saw Xing Er's actions, she couldn't help but turn her head away. Then, she thought of what had just happened. Her expression changed abruptly, and she viciously cursed, Serves you right. However, the shyness that rose in her heart did not dissipate no matter how hard she tried. Xing Er didn't know how long he had been in the water. When the sky turned dark, Jing Yu and Xiao Chun put on their half-dry clothes. When they walked to the side of the waterfall, they saw Xing Er's figure climbing out of the water. Jing Yu was stunned when she saw Xing Er's drenched appearance. Xing Er, why did you get into the water? Jing Yu blinked and asked Xing Er. When Xing Er heard Jing Yu's question, his expression froze. He turned his head away in embarrassment and didn't say anything. Ahem. Shengwan Linglan walked towards Jing Yu and Xiao Chen. He didn't even look at Xing Er as he said calmly, Let's go. Okay. Jing Yu looked at Xing Er and Shengwan Linglan. Suddenly, she seemed to understand something. She lifted her hand and patted Xing Er's shoulder pitifully. Our Linglan is good at everything, but she's too violent. It must have been Linglan who kicked you into the water, right? Jing Yu looked at second Xing with a serious expression as she spoke. Jing Yu. When Shengwan Linglan heard Jing Yu's words, he suddenly turned his head and glared at Jing Yu angrily. He looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. He could only glare fiercely at Jing Yu before he quickly walked forward. Eh? Jing Yu was slightly stunned. Did she say something wrong? Let's go. When Xiao Chun heard Jing Yu's words, there was a smile in his eyes. He glanced at Xing Er from the corner of his eyes. He looked at the two of them, then looked at Xing Er's cowardly behavior and climbed out of the water. Xiao Chun almost knew what had happened. He didn't expect Jing Yu to say that. Xiao Chun was amused. Jing Yu, Xiao Chun, and the others climbed up the vines and returned to the outside of the forest. They went all the way back to Jinling Town. On the way back, they naturally brought back all the game they hunted. Ever since this incident, the relationship between Xing Er and Shangguan Linglan became very, very strange. From the looks of it, the two of them didn't seem to have changed. However, for some reason, Jingyu felt that there was something strange between the two of them. As for what exactly was going on, Jingyu couldn't put her finger on it. For this reason, Jingyu studied the two of them for a long time. Xiao Chun, do you really not think that there's something wrong between Xing Er and Linglan? Could it be that they quarreled? Jingyu grabbed Xiao Chun again and asked. I don't think so, Xiao Chun replied calmly. This made Jingyu even more confused. Chapter 1176. Could it be that she was overthinking things? However, since it was a matter between Shangguan Linglan and Xing Er, she couldn't be bothered to get involved. She stayed in Jinling Town for the past few days. The battle between Tokyo and Nanli continued, but it wasn't a big battle. Jingyu couldn't go out and participate in the battle because her eyes had to be hidden. What is this? Jingyu looked at the cloth Yi Shui brought over and asked curiously. Didn't you want to go to the battlefields? Yi Shui crossed her arms. She raised her eyebrows and looked at Jingyu. Cover your eyes and continue to be blind. Then you can go to the battlefield. Jingyu's face darkened. She glared at Yi Shui and said, Whose idea was this? Xiao Chen's, Yi Shui replied with a smile. Who wants to cover my eyes? Jingyu angrily threw the cloth away and walked into the room. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to sleep. Yi Shui looked at Jingyu's angry figure, and a faint smile appeared in his eyes. He slightly raised his eyebrows and turned to leave. When night fell, Jingyu had just finished showering. She was lying on the bed with a shirt on. She was flipping through a book in her hands. Her smooth legs swayed as she read. She seemed to be very interested in the book, so it's better to be able to see. Jingyu sighed deeply in her heart. Just as she was engrossed in reading, someone suddenly grabbed her ankle. Jingyu was startled and turned to look. You're not even wearing your clothes properly. Xiao Chun, who was dressed in black, stood behind Jingyu. Looking at Jingyu, he frowned with dissatisfaction. He stepped forward and sat down beside Jingyu. He raised his hand to take the book from Jingyu's hand and flipped through it. A storybook. Are you still a child? Xiao Chun lowered his head helplessly and glared at Jingyu. Yes. Jingyu blinked when she heard Xiao Chun's question. She then nodded seriously. Xiao Chun calmly put the book aside and looked at Jingyu with narrowed eyes. His lips curled into an evil smile as he said, Is that so? Then I'll have to check it properly. Hey! Jingyu looked at Xiao Chun's outstretched hand and immediately hid under the bed in shock. She shouted, I'm not. Don't pull my clothes, Xiao Chun. You bastard. Jingyu's exasperated voice rang out. However, she was powerless under Xiao Chun's attack. Ever since the incident at the hot spring, Jingyu and Xiao Chun finally returned to normal. However, after that incident, Xiao Chun pestered Jingyu even more. Every time, Jingyu would beg for mercy. Xiao Chun unhappily let go of Jingyu. Although Xiao Chun had been like this in the past, he had never been so torturous. On the bed, the candlelight flickered weakly. Jingyu lay in Xiao Chun's arms with her eyes closed. Her forehead was covered in sweat, and she was breathing slowly. Xiao Chun narrowed his pitch-black eyes. He moved his body and lifted his arms to embrace Jingyu. Jingyu's eyes were half opened. Her pair of golden-green eyes were even more dazzling in the dark night. Do you know how alluring you are right now? Xiao Chun's eyes darkened slightly. He looked at Jingyu's exposed arms and the red marks on her smooth back. This scene had a huge impact on Xiao Chun. Chapter 1177. Xiao Chun. Jingyu's brows furrowed as she looked slightly tired. When Xiao Chun heard Jingyu calling his name, he lowered his eyes and lifted his hand to caress Jingyu's face as he said, Go to sleep. Jingyu heaved a sigh of relief when she heard Xiao Chun's words and closed her eyes again. Xiao Chen lifted his hand and pulled the blanket over Jingyu's body. He turned to the side and hugged Jingyu tightly as he slowly closed his eyes. Jingyu slept very deeply in the middle of the night. Xiao Chen, who was originally sleeping soundly, slowly got up at this moment, put on his clothes, and walked out of the room. "Master," a familiar voice sounded. Xiao Chen stopped in his tracks at the door and looked at the person who had come. "Xing Yi, is that you?" Xiao Chen's eyes flickered slightly as he looked at Xing Yi, who was standing at the side. He was already completely fine. It seemed that Xing Ji's methods were indeed effective. Xing Yi had recovered very well. "Yes, your subordinate." Xing Yi nodded in response. "Let's go." Xiao Chen was silent for a moment before he calmly turned around and walked into Xing Ji's room. The lights were still on in Xing Ji's room. "Ninth brother, you're here?" Xing Gu wasn't surprised to see Xiao Chen. After he welcomed Xiao Chen into the room, he didn't make a sound. "How much time is left?" Xing Yi, who was standing outside the door, didn't hear anything else after he heard those words. When Jingyu woke up in the morning, it was already late in the morning. Xiao Chen, who was beside her, was long gone. Jingyu blinked her eyes. She was already used to it. She yawned and put on her clothes before she walked out while rubbing her sore body. These days, Shengwan Linglan, Fang Ziqing, and the others were extremely busy. Only Jingyu was especially free and had nothing to do. Jingyu sat in the courtyard with her chin propped up as she thought about what to do. Originally, she wanted to drag Shengwan Linglan to the Roman forest. However, Shengwan Linglan left for the military camp early in the morning. This made Jingyu very depressed, so she could only go alone. In the Roman forest, Jingyu sat leisurely on Yin Jiao's back as they slowly walked into the depths of the forest. She looked at the various wild beasts in the forest with a bored expression. She walked aimlessly and didn't know where they were going. Jingyu ran in the direction of the sound of flowing water when she heard it. It turned out to be a small waterfall. This waterfall was nothing compared to the one Jingyu brought Shengwan Linglan to last time. Jingyu wasn't interested in it. She walked over and took off the water bottle at her waist. Just as she bent down to fill it with water, she suddenly saw a black shadow appear in the air from the water's reflection. Jingyu suddenly raised her head and slowly turned around. Her eyes were filled with horror as she looked at the huge eagle that was swooping down. It was heading straight for the two gray wolves, Yin Jian and Yin Feng. "Yin Feng, run!" In a split second, Jingyu's body trembled violently as she shouted, "Ayo!" Yin Feng and Yin Jiao also felt the danger from the sky. The eagle bent down and extended its sharp claws, causing Jingyu's eyes to turn cold. "Stop!" Jingyu didn't hesitate to pick up a withered tree branch and used all her strength to swing it towards the giant eagle. The tree branch hit the giant eagle's body fiercely. The eagle's wings shook, and it let out a cry as it fiercely flapped its wings and flew into the sky. Chapter 1178. Jingyu panted slightly and looked up to see the giant eagle fly to the top of the waterfall and disappear over the mountain. "Silver Wind, are you all right?" Jingyu hurriedly ran towards Yin Jian and Yin Feng. Seeing that the two gray wolves were safe and sound, she slowly let out a sigh of relief. She gently stroked Yin Feng's head and suddenly turned her head to look towards the top of the mountain. "That damn thing. He didn't catch it last time, and this time he dared to attack Silver Wind. He must be tired of living. Let's go." Jingyu's golden-green eyes flashed with coldness. She stood up and climbed on Silver Wind's back and walked up the small path to the top of the mountain. If she didn't catch this guy and teach him a lesson today, she wouldn't be able to vent the hatred in her heart. Jingyu led Silver Arrow and Silver Wind to the top of the mountain. She saw the small river, but didn't see any trace of the giant eagle. Jingyu didn't give up and went down the mountain again. She climbed over 2 more mountains but still found nothing. Jingyu finally returned to Jinling Town when the sky turned dark. Because she had never seen such a huge eagle before, Jingyu specially called Fang Ziqing over to investigate the origin of this giant eagle. "Know thyself and know thy enemy, and thou shalt be victorious in every battle." Jingyu was now completely focused on this giant eagle. This, in order to let Fong Zicheng see it clearly, Jingyu used her extraordinary drawing skills and drew a rough sketch of the giant eagle. She placed it in Fong Zicheng's hands. How is it? Do you recognize it? Jingyu blinked and asked Fong Zicheng. So snowflake eagles really exist in this world. Fong Zicheng's eyes were filled with surprise. He looked up at Jingyu and said, "There's a saying in the pugilistic world, chasing the sun and racing the wind colt, 1,000 miles of rouge snow." These two sayings refer to two types of mounts. Fong Zicheng slowly smiled and said, "Chasing the sun and racing the wind colt refers to a rare breed of colt that lives in the Cebu Plains. It can chase the sun and race the wind." And the last one, 1,000 miles of rouge snow, refers to the snowflake eagle. According to the records, snowflake eagles live on the top of mountains and have a wingspan of 15 feet. They're the largest eagle species in the world. However, snowflake eagles are fierce and will even eat people. That's why it got the fierce name of fierce eagle. Very few people would look for it. When Fong Zicheng finished speaking, Jingyu's eyes were filled with surprise. So this was the origin of the giant eagle. No wonder it was so ferocious. Fierce eagle, it really lives up to its name. Fong Zicheng. Fong Zicheng. Fong Zicheng. How? Catch. You want to catch one? Fong Zicheng waved his hand and said, "It's too dangerous." No. What are you afraid of? I'm not asking you to do it. Jingyu rolled her eyes. Jingyu, snowflakes aren't that simple. Fong Zicheng sighed helplessly and said, "Snowflakes aren't just individually strong. They live in groups and live on the top of mountains and cliffs. One is already so scary. Do you know what it means to have a group?" A group? Jingyu was completely shocked. She blinked and looked at Qinbai. Her eyes were full of surprise. "Yes." Fong Zicheng nodded and said, "If you go just like that, I guarantee that you won't be enough for them. These snowflakes are as scary as vultures. They don't refuse meat. Do you still want to go?" Chapter 1179. Jingyu furrowed her brows and nodded solemnly. "Yes." "What? You still want to go?" Fong Zicheng's eyes widened in shock. "I have to go. I'll go prepare." Jingyu stood up abruptly and left without another word, completely ignoring Fong Zicheng's shouts. When Xiaoqun received the news, he saw Jingyu cutting something in the courtyard. "Xiaoqun, you're here?" Jingyu looked up at Xiaoqun and smiled. "What are you doing?" Xiaoqun looked at the thing in Jingyu's hand and asked curiously. "Look, I'm making something." Jingyu took a piece of paper from the side. On the white paper was something that Jingyu had drawn with charcoal. Xiaoqun narrowed his eyes and furrowed his brows as he looked at it. "This? Why does it look so similar to Cebu's heavy ballista?" Xiaoqun's eyes were filled with surprise as he looked at Jingyu. "Yes." Jingyu nodded and sat down. "When I saw Cebu's ballista last time, it reminded me of something. I drew this based on the ballista. It's called a crossbow." "Crossbow?" Xiaoqun narrowed his eyes. "Yes, it's the same as a bow, but it doesn't need to be pulled by humans. I'll show it to you when I'm done." Jingyu frowned and took the paper from Xiaoqun's hand. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Jingyu naturally knew about the crossbow. It had existed in China's history, but it hadn't appeared in Xiaoqun's era. Only Cebu's heavy ballista had appeared, and the principle behind it was the same. It was said that Cebu became the most famous country among the 4 countries for its military prowess. Most of the Cebu's soldiers were proficient in using bows and arrows. Jingyu looked into it and found that it was because she had obtained a blueprint from Cebu. However, no matter how the other countries investigated, they couldn't find it. This was the lifeline of the Cebu. Cebu naturally hid the person who made the ballista very well. Every country was wary of the Cebu. Now, Jingyu had drawn the crossbow so casually and even said that she wanted to make it. How could Xiaoqun not be surprised and curious? In order to understand what Jingyu wanted to do, Xiaoqun stayed behind and watched Jingyu's process of making it. It wasn't complicated, and her technique was unfamiliar. Obviously, she didn't do it often. Jingyu tried making the crossbow several times, but it turned out to be a waste product. After all, Jingyu only relied on her memory to make it. She didn't have any specific experiments. Jingyu called Jinhai to study the crossbow together. Jinhai had always been very enthusiastic about making these things. He studied with Jingyu for 2 to 3 days. The two of them didn't even have time to eat. They constantly improved, experimented, and made the crossbow. It had to be said that Jinhai was really amazing. Perhaps practice made perfect? On the 3rd day, Jingyu finally made the first crossbow in history. Xiaoqun saw Jingyu put the arrow on the crossbow with his own eyes. It flew out and nailed accurately on a tree trunk in the distance. Huh, it's a success. Jingyu's eyes were full of joy as she shouted loudly. Xiaoqun, Shengwan Hongwen, and the others stood at the side. When they saw this scene, their eyes lit up. They narrowed their eyes slightly and looked at each other. They saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Chapter 1180. Xiaoqun, do you see this? This is a crossbow. Jingyu quickly walked to Xiaoqun's side and let Xiaoqun try it out. She arched her eyebrows and said, "Try it. This crossbow is lighter than a normal bow. It's very light whether you hold it in your hand or carry it on your back. But the strength and accuracy of its shots aren't inferior at all." Jingyu taught Xiaoqun how to use it and let everyone try it out. "It's too amazing." Shengwan Hongwen's eyes lit up. He said in surprise, "The soldiers have to carry bows and arrows. It's too big and inconvenient. If we have this, it'll be too convenient." I remember in Jianghu, there was a chivalrous warrior who liked to use a sleeve arrow. The sleeve arrow was hidden in the sleeve. The power of the sleeve arrow was not bad, but the range was too short. This crossbow is simply perfect. Fang Ziqing held the crossbow in his hand and said with admiration, "But, 9th Imperial Concubine, how did you know how to make it?" Fang Ziqing looked at it for a long time and finally asked the question that everyone wanted to ask. "Yes, 9th Imperial Concubine. How did you know how to make it?" Everyone looked at Jingyu in confusion. "Huh? Can I steal your skills?" Jingyu laughed and blinked her eyes. She took the crossbow and said, "Jinhai, now that you know how to make it, you can make a batch and let the soldiers try it out." "Okay." Jinhai nodded solemnly. Although everyone was puzzled and didn't know how Jingyu did it, they were more happy in their hearts. With this crossbow, the combat strength of the soldiers would be greatly improved once again. After Jingyu packed everything, she couldn't wait to go to the Roman forest. Jingyu didn't make this crossbow on a whim. If it wasn't for the fierce eagle, Jingyu wouldn't have made it. When Jingyu was about to go out, she was blocked by Xiaoqun. Jingyu was carrying a lot of things. Seeing Xiaoqun blocking her way, Jingyu looked at Xiaoqun in confusion. She didn't know what Xiaoqun meant. "Fang Ziqing said that you're going to catch the fierce eagle?" Xiaoqun's eyes were full of displeasure. Jingyu's face darkened. Fang Ziqing's big mouth. Didn't she tell him not to tell Xiaoqun? Why did he tell Xiaoqun? This? That? Jingyu swallowed her saliva silently. She was thinking of a way to fool him. "What do you plan to do?" Xiaoqun was silent for a moment, then stared at Jingyu and asked. Jingyu raised her head and looked at Xiaoqun's serious eyes. Jingyu helplessly sighed and said, "I only have this plan now, but I don't know if I can do it." Xiaoqun continued to stare at Jingyu. Obviously, he wanted Jingyu to explain things clearly to him. "I want to tame the fierce eagle." Jingyu was silent for a moment, then stared at Xiaoqun and said seriously. Xiaoqun's eyes widened slightly, and then he slowly lowered his gaze. That's just what I think." Jingyu muttered to Xiaoqun and said, "Whether I can do it or not, I don't know. If I can't tame it, don't worry, I can definitely run away. I still have the ability to protect myself." Chapter 1181. Okay. Jingyu originally thought that it would take some time to convince Xiaoqun, but she didn't expect that after Jingyu finished speaking, Xiaoqun would actually calmly agree, causing Jingyu's eyes to widen. You agree?" Jingyu blinked at Xiao Chun and asked. Yes, I agree. Xiao Chun raised his hand to pat Jingyu's head and said, But I want to go with you. Jingyu's face darkened. She knew it. How could Xiao Chun suddenly be so easy to talk to? Between the Roman forest, Jingyu and Xiao Chun rode on Jian and Feng, quickly moving towards the depths of the forest. Feng Zicheng had said that fierce eagles like to live on top of mountains. Since it was a cliff, then in this Roman forest, there was only one place that fit Feng Zicheng's description. That place was Jingyu's least favorite place because it was too gloomy. Jingyu rarely went there. Although Jingyu used to live in this forest, she didn't go to many places. Jingyu rode on Silver Arrow and Silver Wind towards the depths of the Roman forest. Finally, at noon, they arrived at the foot of a tall mountain. Xiao Chun, look, it's there. Jingyu slowly raised her finger, and a huge mountain appeared on top of the tall mountain. However, this mountain looked like it had been split open by a knife, and there were several huge rocks piled up on top of the mountain, covered with vines. Jingyu and Xiao Chun stood at the foot of the mountain and looked at the tall mountain peak, silently swallowing their saliva. This wasn't just a normal height. It was also quite dangerous between the gaps of these huge rocks. It gave people an inexplicable feeling, as if the rocks could fall down at any time, especially when they saw the cracks on the rocks. Jingyu was scared witless when she stepped on them. Rock climbing had always been Jingyu's specialty in the modern era, but it wasn't like this. Be careful. Xiao Chun stepped on a piece of land and slightly tilted his head to say to Jingyu. Jingyu raised her hand to wipe the cold sweat on her forehead, paused, and nodded. Okay, let's continue. I climbed up to here before, but there were too many snakes and centipedes, so I didn't dare to go up. Jingyu grumbled bitterly. When she first discovered this place, Jingyu excitedly climbed up, but in the end, she was scared back. Xiao Chen's face darkened. He raised his hand to pull out the dagger at his waist and said, I'll lead the way. Jingyu was startled. Seeing Xiao Chen climb up without saying anything, she blinked her eyes in surprise. Following behind Xiao Chun, she inexplicably had a strong feeling of being protected, which made Jingyu feel very happy. Sure enough, as Jingyu said, on the way up, they could almost casually encounter all kinds of snakes. Jingyu almost thought that she had fallen into a snake's nest. What was even more terrifying were those disgusting centipedes and the like. So annoying. Jingyu took Qing Ji's medicine and sprinkled it along the way. Jingyu and Xiao Chun had already sprinkled the medicine on their bodies, so the insects wouldn't crawl on them. These things didn't like this kind of smell. Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu's expression and smiled helplessly. We're almost there. Xiao Chun casually threw down a snake in his hand, raised his head slightly, and looked at the top that was getting closer and closer. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Chapter 1182. Jingyu and Xiao Chun stepped onto a rock and were about to climb up when they suddenly heard the sharp cry of an eagle. This figure was so loud that it reverberated in the air. Jingyu's eyes were filled with surprise as she looked up. High up in the sky, there was a huge eagle circling in the air. That mighty figure made Jingyu's eyes widen even more. What a big eagle! Jingyu said in surprise. Be careful! Xiao Chun suddenly reached out and pulled Jingyu into the crevice of the rock to avoid the eagle's search. His dark eyes narrowed slightly. This eagle was really powerful. It's really scary. Jingyu slowly pursed her lips and said, Let's be careful. The nest of these eagles must be here. Xiao Chun nodded his head and followed Jingyu. The two of them climbed up again and finally stepped onto the biggest rock. The moment they stood on the rock, Jingyu felt like she was in a trance. It really was incomparably high. Standing on this rock, they could easily see the entire Roman forest in the distance. Jingyu's eyes narrowed slightly, her eyes filled with surprise. So, the Roman forest was actually so big. Jingyu couldn't see it. They couldn't see the edge at all. There was a faint mist at the edge, and they couldn't see clearly at all. Xiao Chun took Jingyu's hand. We're here? Xiao Chen's heavy voice sounded in Jingyu's ear. pulling Jing Yu's gaze back to reality. See? Jing Yu turned around and looked. With one look, her eyes widened in horror. The nest of the eagles. Xiao Chen's words slowly sounded in Jing Yu's ear. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun were standing in the crevice of the rock. The eagles, big and small, were all standing there, their eyes moving around as if they were on guard against something. From time to time, they would see some eagles circling around the space outside the cliff, holding colorful snakes in their mouths. They would casually tear them apart and eat them. Such a spectacular scene really shocked Jing Yu for a long time. Jing Yu silently swallowed her saliva. She looked sideways at Xiao Chun and asked, "How about we go back?" Xiao Chen's face immediately darkened. "I'm afraid we can't go back," Xiao Chen said quietly. Before Jing Yu could ask why, she suddenly saw a pitch-black figure rushing towards Jing Yu and Xiao Chun. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun were shocked and quickly moved aside to avoid the sharp claws. "Damn, these guys really don't know how to treat guests," Jing Yu fiercely cursed. The commotion here completely attracted the attention of those big guys. In an instant, an alarm-like cry sounded from below the cliff. Jing Yu cursed in her heart and quickly ran to the side of the path. Originally, Jing Yu thought that this path would lead to some crevice in the mountain. She didn't expect that when she ran over, she would be stunned. Jing Yu actually ran into the nest of one of the eagles. Moreover, there were a few eggs in the nest. When the eagle saw Jing Yu appear, it immediately cried out angrily. The cry was so loud that it hurt Jing Yu's ears. Chapter 1183. Oh my God! Jing Yu turned around and ran. Obviously, the Humbies thought that Jing Yu was a thief who came to steal the eggs. The Humbies were so angry that even their feathers stood up. Jing Yu ran for her life, but the Humbies behind her didn't stop chasing. On this cliff, Jing Yu could only run in these directions or jump down. Jumping down was definitely not an option. Jing Yu swallowed her saliva and ran in another direction. Her eyes flickered as if she had thought of something, and the look in her eyes suddenly deepened. "I don't care. I'll fight." Jing Yu fiercely gritted her teeth and decisively rushed towards the group of Humbies. Xiao Chen saw Jing Yu's actions, and his pupils shrank. He seemed to have guessed what Jing Yu wanted to do, and his brows deeply wrinkled. The Humbies here had completely entangled Xiao Chun, so Xiao Chun could only dodge everywhere. He couldn't do anything else. Jing Yu rushed into the group of Humbies, and the Humbies were all startled. They fiercely screeched at Jing Yu, as if they would pounce on her at any time. Jing Yu's eyes slightly looked in one direction, and her eyes narrowed, as if she was judging the time. The Humbies let out a sharp cry, and one by one, they flapped their wings and surrounded Jing Yu. Jing Yu stepped back little by little towards the edge of the cliff. Xiao Chen saw Jing Yu's actions from a distance, and his whole heart trembled. Jing Yu's whole body tensed up. Seeing the Humbies approaching, they seemed to have grasped the right time, and all of them rushed towards Jing Yu like a swarm of bees. Now is the time. Jing Yu's eyes suddenly became cold, and the moment the Humbies rushed over, she suddenly jumped out. The moment Jing Yu jumped out, a Humvee circling the edge of the cliff wanted to sneak attack Jing Yu from behind, but it didn't expect that Jing Yu would suddenly jump down, and her 2 feet firmly stepped on the Humvee's back. Ah! An incomparably sharp cry came from the Humvee's mouth. Jing Yu's body was covered in cold sweat, and she quickly grabbed the Humvee's feathers to prevent herself from being thrown out. When had a Humvee's back been stepped on by a human? Jing Yu looked at the vines that suddenly appeared and fiercely turned the Humvee's head. Oh my God! Jing Yu looked at the tens of thousands of meters in the sky, and her legs went soft. The Humvee was rolling, struggling, and circling above the cliff, but it refused to accept Jing Yu and fiercely wanted to throw Jing Yu off. Jing Yu's hand fiercely slammed the Humvee into the cliff, and because of this, she was knocked dizzy. Do you admit defeat? Jing Yu's golden-green eyes flashed with a different kind of light, and Jing Yu fiercely pressed the Humvee down as she shouted. Ah! With another cry, the Humvee continued to fly, circling above the cliff. The Humvee behind it seemed to be chasing, but it didn't seem to care at all. Jingyu refused to let go no matter what. On the Humvee rushed into a forest full of thorns, and the thorns on her hands and face made Jingyu frown fiercely. Xiao Chen tied up the Humvee. Wiping the sweat on his forehead, he looked at Jingyu and the Humvee still circling in the sky, and suddenly frowned. Chapter 1184. Roar! A clear cry could be heard. Jingyu was probably really angry. She didn't care about anything else and fiercely slammed the fierce eagle into the rock. Fuck! Jingyu fiercely cursed. You really think I can't do anything to you? Since you like slamming so much, I'll let you have your fun. Jingyu fiercely pulled on the fierce eagle's feathers, as if she was flinging clothes. Again and again, she slammed the fierce eagle into the rocks, almost causing it to lose all of its bearings. Then Jingyu fiercely flung the fierce eagle, causing it to fall to the ground, moaning powerlessly. Are you convinced? If you're not convinced, let's do it again. Jingyu sat on the fierce eagle's body and revealed a very amiable smile. She smiled at the fierce eagle and said something. The fierce eagle weakly cried out and decisively laid on the ground, motionless. Ah, that's a good boy. Jingyu looked at the completely motionless fierce eagle and very happily reached out to touch its head. She smiled and slowly got down from the fierce eagle. Only then did the fierce eagle stand up. This fierce eagle is really not a normal big one. It's at least 2 meters tall. It's already this tall when it's standing, and when it spread its wings in the air just now, it's incomparably majestic. Jingyu's golden-green eyes slightly flickered. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the fierce eagle's orange eyes. Hearing the fierce eagle's cry, it lowered its head and rubbed Jingyu's head, looking like it was bullied and wanted to be comforted. I told you to behave. You didn't listen. Did it hurt? Jingyu raised her hand and touched the fierce eagle's head. Just as she was about to speak, she heard Xiao Chen's call from the top of the mountain. Jingyu looked up. Come, let's go up. Hearing this, Jingyu raised her hand and grabbed the fierce eagle's back. This time, there was no obstruction at all. She easily flew to the top of the mountain and slowly landed among the group of fierce eagles. Jingyu. After seeing Jingyu come down, Xiao Chen hurriedly greeted her. Seeing that Jingyu was not injured, he slowly let out a sigh of relief. How could you be so reckless? Xiao Chen thought of the scene just now and frowned in displeasure. He stared at Jingyu and said, I'm fine. Jingyu pulled Xiao Chen's hand and turned to look at the fierce eagles and said, Fierce eagles now. These fierce eagles are no harm. Ah. Hearing this, Xiao Chen was slightly startled. He turned his head and looked at the fierce eagles. Only then did he realize that the fierce eagles that had been screaming so loudly were now sitting on the ground peacefully. They were no longer hostile to Jingyu and Xiao Chen. Seeing this scene, Xiao Chen's eyes flashed slightly. He turned his head and looked at Jingyu's golden-green eyes. He seemed to understand a little. Xiao Chen, come up. Jingyu found a fierce eagle that looked very strong. After flipping over and mounting it, she reached out her hand to Xiao Chen. Seeing Jingyu's outstretched hand, Xiao Chen's eyes revealed a faint smile. He reached out his hand and held Jingyu's hand. Together, they sat on the fierce eagle. Chirp, chirp, a loud and clear cry echoed in the valley. With this cry, the fierce eagles in the mountain valley all flew up as if they had received some kind of order. One by one, they flew high into the sky and into the clouds, circling and crying. This scene was spectacular. Behind them, countless fierce eagles circled and danced, as if they were protecting Jingyu and Xiao Chen. The figures flying in the sky, the sound of the wind in their ears was so loud. Chapter 1185. Jingyu rode the Humvee down from the sky, passing through the cracks in the rocks, sweeping through the bushes, and flying among the trees in the forest. Behind her, Xiaoqun held Jingyu's waist with a faint smile on his face. Wow, I can fly! At this moment, Jingyu couldn't control her excitement. This is too amazing! Xiaoqun's face, which rarely showed any expression, was dyed with pleasant surprise. The faint blush on his face showed that he was very excited. Jingyu never thought that one day she would be able to fly in the blue sky. Below her feet, she could see the endless mountains and trees of the Roman forest. When the wind blew, it was like a green ocean, rippling with layer after layer of waves. Huh! Roar! Jingyu played in the sky above the Roman forest to her heart's content. Finally, as the sun gradually set, she landed on an open space near Jinling town. The setting sun stretched the shadows of Jingyu, Xiaoqun, and the Humvee very long. Jingyu watched the Humvee fly into the sky, as if it was saying goodbye to Jingyu. It let out a clear cry before disappearing. That was too satisfying. Jingyu's eyes curved. The excitement in her eyes didn't fade. And Xiaoqun held Jingyu's hand and looked at the crossbow on Jingyu's back. He said, "You originally planned to kill the Humvee if you couldn't tame it?" "Yes." Jingyu nodded and took the crossbow off her back. She said, "Fortunately, I held back. But when I was riding the Humvee, it made me think of something else." "Do you want to train the Humvee as mounts for the soldiers?" Jingyu didn't need to say anything, as Xiaoqun had already said it. When Jingyu heard Xiaoqun's words, her eyes widened in surprise. She pursed her lips and said, "You thought of it too?" Xiaoqun nodded and said, "I didn't think of it before, but when I was riding the Humvee and saw the scenery below, I thought of it. If we had a Humvee team, it would be a historic reversal." "Yes, I thought of it too." Jingyu's eyes flashed with light. She looked at Xiaoqun and said, "When we go back, we'll discuss it with everyone. If we really want to form an army with the Humvee, we'll definitely need a Humvee saddle." Xiaoqun also nodded. But Xiaoqun frowned at Jingyu and said, "Taming the Humvee won't do you any harm, right? Is there anything wrong?" "Me? I'm fine." Jingyu was very confused. She blinked and said, "I don't feel anything at all. I just feel that it's very simple. I thought that the Humvee would be very fierce, but it seems like it's easier than taming a Lion King. I remember that when I tamed a Lion King and a Tiger King, I felt very tired. Now, I don't feel anything at all." Jingyu raised her hand and touched her eyes. She said with some confusion, "It's really strange. That's a good thing." Xiaoqun looked at Jingyu's eyes. He pursed his lips and said, "But we still need to pay attention to something. Ask Feng Zicheng to investigate the Holy Family and see what's going on with your strange eyes." Jingyu lowered her eyes and replied. When the two of them returned to Jinling, the sky was already completely dark. In the following period of time, Jingyu and Jinhai were working on the frame on the Humvee. It could be tied to the body of the Humvee so that the person sitting on it could have a place to stand. Chapter 1186. The crossbows that Jingyu had been researching were also being developed in large batches. From an outsider's perspective, Jinling Town seemed to be going on as usual, but they didn't know that a huge change was happening in one of the towns. As time passed, more and more crossbows were produced. What Jingyu wanted to do was to train the eagle riders, and the weapons they would use were crossbows. With such coordination, they would definitely be able to achieve perfect results. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. In the Roman forest, the originally quiet forest suddenly soared into the sky with a fierce eagle, causing people to tremble in fear. Looking at the people sitting on the fierce eagle, their eyes were filled with ferocity. By now, they could already control the fierce eagle skillfully, avoiding all the rocks and controlling the speed of the flight. Thinking back to how careful and fearful they had been a month ago, they felt a little amused. And this month's growth was all thanks to Jingyu. The fierce eagle stopped at the highest cliff in the Roman forest. "Very good, you can all graduate now." From today onwards, the Eagle Riders are officially established. Jingyu stood beside the fierce eagle, her golden-green eyes sparkling under the sunlight. When Jingyu finished speaking, everyone cheered excitedly. "You all go back first, I still have things to do." After leaving these words, Jingyu mounted the fierce eagle and flew in another direction. The soldiers behind her saw Jingyu's figure and blinked slightly, but they couldn't disobey Jingyu's orders. They all mounted their fierce eagles and flew in the direction of Jinling Town. High up in the sky, Jingyu narrowed her eyes slightly. Before Jingyu set out today, Fang Zicheng had given Jingyu a secret mission. The mission was to investigate where the Cebu's troops were stationed. Fang Zicheng had always believed that the Cebu's existence was a ticking time bomb. Jingyu was also very conflicted about this. The Cebu had been standing at the side and watching without any movements. After so long, it was time to investigate the Cebu situation. "Be careful." Jingyu raised her hand and patted the fierce eagle's neck. Although the fierce eagle was in the air, it was too big. If they got too close, it would be difficult to guarantee that they wouldn't be noticed, so it was better to be careful. Jingyu slowly approached the Cebu's main camp, lowering her body bit by bit in the air so that Jingyu could see the Cebu's defensive layout clearly. The Cebu's troops were peacefully stationed on the plains, completely unaware that there was a pair of eyes watching them from above. Jing uses hers. This the crown's crowns? As for the other person, he was wearing a white robe, which was very wide and covered his body. The robe was connected with a hat, which covered his head and hair, revealing a very handsome face. He seemed to be talking to Wei Ling. Jingyu frowned slightly. This man was obviously not from Cebu. He was dressed like a person from the pugilistic world. Who was this person? How could he make Wei Ling act so friendly? Could he be a helper that Wei Ling had invited? Chapter 1187. Jingyu wanted to take a closer look, but she was afraid that she would be discovered. She thought about Fang Zicheng's instructions when he gave her the task today and sighed deeply. She wanted to put this matter aside and memorize the terrain of this defensive formation. As for this man, she would think about it later. Jingyu silently pursed her lips. After memorizing it, she rose into the air and left. At this moment, in the Cebu's camp, Wei Ling and the man in white were talking. "Thank you, Crown Prince, for your help this time." The man in white had a handsome face. He looked at Wei Ling with a pair of clear black eyes as he spoke. His action of saluting was the action of a Jianghu hero. He did not seem like someone from the palace at all. "Sir Bai is too polite." Wei Ling waved his hand nonchalantly and said, "But Sir Bai, do you really not plan on staying here for a few more days?" "No need." The man in white lowered his head and said helplessly, "If I stay here, I will bring a lot of trouble to the Crown Prince. Once my injuries are healed, I will leave on my own." When Wei Ling heard the man's words, he frowned slightly. He looked at the man in white and said worriedly, "External injuries are easy to heal, but internal injuries are difficult to heal." "Sir Bai." Wei Ling paused again. "I can only take one step at a time." When the man in white heard Wei Ling's words, his hands that were hanging by his side clenched slightly. He seemed to be unable to endure it. His lips were slightly pale, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness. "Let's just live a few more years." The man in white slowly closed his eyes and said as if he was sighing. Wei Ling looked at the man in white and did not say anything. The man turned his head and looked in a direction. His pitch-black eyes were filled with longing and deep thoughts. That kind of longing was very clear. But there was also a strong sense of sadness and unwillingness in this longing. No one could understand the expression in his eyes or the meaning of his words. Jingyu hovered above the Cebu garrison for 3 consecutive days before she finally memorized the defensive layout. Fang Zicheng was very satisfied and went back to study it. However, after studying it for several days, he still didn't give any orders. Jingyu once again fell into a state of idleness. Tokyo and Nan Li were still engaged in a tug-of-war with Jinling. The situation seemed to have inexplicably fallen into a deadlock, and there was no progress in any other direction. However, this originally stable situation was completely disrupted because of one incident. On this day, Jingyu and Yi Shui went to the forest to practice their beast-taming abilities. Yi Shui used her voice to tame beasts, while Jingyu used her eyes to tame them. Jingyu always felt that there was a connection between her and Yi Shui, but she didn't know where it was. Today, Jingyu specially called Yi Shui out, saying that she wanted to study what was going on. Yi Shui saw that Jingyu was so interested and followed her. Try to control this rabbit in front of you. Jingyu caught a wild rabbit and let Yi Shui try to control it. Yi Shui took out the jade flute at her waist and blew it slowly. The sound of the flute echoed in the forest. Jingyu blinked when she saw the rabbit stand up. It's really mysterious. How do you control it? Jingyu squatted down curiously and watched the rabbit turn in circles and sway left and right. She blinked curiously. Chapter 1188. The sound of the flute continued. Jingyu squatted on the ground and looked at the rabbit. She didn't know why, but when she heard Yi Shui's flute, Jingyu suddenly fell into a trance and sat on the ground. Yi Shui saw that Jingyu had suddenly sat on the ground and stopped playing the flute. He asked in confusion, "Jingyu, what's wrong?" "It's nothing." Jingyu trembled and shook her head. She raised her hand and rubbed her temples. Was she distracted just now? Or did something happen? Why did Jingyu feel like she couldn't control herself at that moment? "I was distracted for a moment." Jingyu patted her clothes and stood up. Just as Jingyu and Yi Shui were in the middle of their experiment, Jingyu's sharp ears heard a sound coming from the forest. Jingyu immediately became alert. "There's movement." Jingyu gestured for Yi Shui to keep quiet. The two of them walked quickly into the forest. As soon as they stepped into the forest, they heard the sound of weapons clashing. Jingyu's eyes flashed with a cold light. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the people who were fighting. In the forest, a group of black-clothed people were slashing their swords and sabers at two people. One of them was dressed in white, and his body was covered in wounds. The bright red blood dyed his clothes red. The moment Jingyu saw this person, she was stunned. No wonder this back view was so familiar. Wasn't this the man who was standing beside Wei Ling a while ago? But why was this person here? Jingyu's mind was filled with confusion. Just as she was about to hide and watch, she suddenly saw Yi Shui standing up excitedly. Jingyu was so shocked that she quickly reached out to pull Yi Shui back. Now was not the time to show off. Bai Jiao. However, just as Jingyu reached out to pull Yi Shui back, she heard Yi Shui call out that name in shock as she stared at the man in white. "What?" "Bai Jiao." Jingyu widened her eyes and looked at the man in white. She didn't expect this person to be the Bai Jiao that Yi Shui had been searching for. While Jingyu was still in shock, Yi Shui rushed forward recklessly. Just as Yi Shui rushed forward, Bai Jiao suddenly turned and ran. Yi Shui chased after her without a care. Poor Jingyu was left behind to deal with the men in black. Jingyu wanted to chase after them, but she was held back by the men in black. "Damn it!" Jingyu's face darkened. Her golden-green eyes glowed brightly, and the roars of wolves and tigers resounded in the forest. These men had seen Jingyu's eyes. In order to prevent the news from leaking, Jingyu couldn't be left alive. By the time Jingyu finished dealing with the men in black, Yi Shui and Bai Jiao had already disappeared. Jingyu sighed helplessly. This man valued his lover more than his friends. Jingyu chased after them, but she couldn't see where they went. Just as Jingyu was about to turn to another path to investigate, she unexpectedly heard the sound of breathing in the grass. Jingyu stopped in her tracks. She clenched her dagger and walked towards the grass. When she lifted the grass and saw Wei Ling leaning against a rock, she was completely stunned. Wei Ling was unconscious and his body was covered in wounds. His eyes were tightly shut and there were traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. His black clothes were dirty. Chapter 1189. Jingyu couldn't understand it all. Why would the crown prince, who was protected at the Cebu, appear here in such a state? Could it be that the Cebu was attacked? That couldn't be right. If the Cebu was attacked, Jingyu couldn't be unaware of it. Jingyu looked normal at the Cebu a while ago. Jingyu frowned when she saw this. Should she save him now? Or should she save him? By the river, she used a handkerchief to wet her hand and fed it to Wei Ling bit by bit. She also cut off Wei Ling's robe and bandaged Wei Ling's wound. The people on TV who tore off their own clothes were too naive. My clothes are so precious. How can they be torn off so casually? Hence, Jingyu decisively cut off Wei Ling's robe and bandaged his wound. It was good enough that she saved him. How could Jingyu treat him so well? Jingyu curled her lips in disdain. One had to know that they were enemies now. If not for the fact that Wei Ling hadn't made a move in this battle and had been observing from the sidelines, and if Wei Ling had hurt anyone that Jingyu cared about, Jingyu would have mercilessly stabbed him in the heart when she saw Wei Ling today. The sky gradually darkened. Jingyu summoned Silver Wind to guard Wei Ling, while Jingyu rode Silver Arrow to continue searching for Yi Shui and Bai Jiao in the forest. However, she didn't find anything. Jingyu had no choice but to return to Wei Ling's side. The sky was already dark, and it was too late to return to Jinling. Furthermore, she had to drag along a heavily injured Wei Ling. She had no choice but to sleep in the forest. When the bonfire was lit, Jingyu hoped that Yi Shui would come looking for her if she saw the bonfire. However, Jingyu was obviously overthinking. That damned woman. What the hell is she doing? Jingyu said unhappily as she poked at the bonfire. Ugh! Just as Jingyu was feeling indignant, she finally heard the unconscious Wei Ling call out, "Water, water." "Oh, you're awake." Jingyu took a large leaf from the side and poured some water on it. She lifted Wei Ling's head and fed the water to Wei Ling. Finally, she saw Wei Ling's tightly shut eyes slowly open. Those pitch-black eyes were still a little dazed. His face was smeared with dirt and blood. Wei Ling's face was undoubtedly handsome. However, ever since Jingyu had Xiao Chun, she inexplicably felt that no one was as handsome as Xiao Chun. For example, in Jingyu's eyes, Wei Ling wasn't good-looking at all. She only felt that he was more pleasing to the eye than the average person. "Crown Prince, you're awake?" Jingyu smiled as she looked at Wei Ling. Jingyu. Wei Ling's voice carried a hint of surprise. He frowned slightly as he looked at Jingyu. "Yes, it seems like your head is still intact. It's not damaged and you can still recognize me." When Jingyu heard Wei Ling calling out to her, she nodded calmly. She raised her hand to touch Wei Ling's head. He didn't show any signs of a fever. How fortunate. You. Wei Ling looked at Jingyu in shock. "What about me?" Jingyu rolled her eyes. She stood up and walked towards the bonfire. She said calmly, "I'm your savior. Since you're awake, eat something. Your injuries are probably fine." Chapter 1190. But I don't know if you have any internal injuries. As Jingyu spoke, she passed the roasted rabbit meat over to Wei Ling. Only then did she realize that Wei Ling was still lying down. She frowned and had no choice but to help Wei Ling sit up first. Only then did she pass the rabbit meat over and ask, "Can you hold it with your hands?" Wei Ling responded and reached out to take the rabbit meat from Jingyu's hands. He was filled with questions as he watched Jingyu eat the rabbit meat without a care in the world. She didn't seem to have any intention of explaining. "Hey, you've been staring at me for a long time. Hurry up and say what you want to say." Jingyu frowned and added more firewood into the fire. "Why did you save me?" After a moment of silence, Wei Ling asked the question that he wanted to ask the most. "I saw it. I wanted to save you. So, I saved you." Jingyu responded calmly. She tilted her head to look at Wei Ling and said, "You should be glad that I happened to be in the Roman forest today. Otherwise, with your blood-stained appearance, you would easily attract wolves." Wei Ling fell silent when he heard this. He silently lowered his head and didn't say anything. "Are you done asking?" Jingyu blinked and looked at Wei Ling. She coughed lightly and said, "Since you're done asking, then it's my turn to ask. Why are you here? Who's after you? And who is that white-clothed man with you?" Jingyu asked a series of questions. She completely ignored Wei Ling's expression and stared at Wei Ling like a curious baby. Wei Ling tilted his head and said, "His name is White Nine. He's a pugilist that I accidentally saved." Wei Ling obviously didn't want to answer Jingyu's first question. He only answered Jingyu's last question. Jingyu wasn't the least bit surprised when she heard Wei Ling's answer. She was just asking casually and didn't expect to get an answer from Wei Ling, so it really is White Nine. Jingyu sighed and lowered her head. She stood up and sat down on the other side. She reached out and fiddled with the fire with a branch. "You know White Nine?" When Wei Ling heard Jingyu's words, he shifted his body and wanted to sit more comfortably, but he didn't expect that he pulled his wound. "I don't know." Jingyu thought for a moment. It seemed like Jingyu only knew White Nine. She didn't officially know White Nine, so she gave such an answer. Wei Ling didn't get to the bottom of it. Instead, he closed his eyes and seemed to be a little tired. "Rest well. I'll be here tonight. Nothing will happen." Jingyu stretched lazily. She raised her hand and added a few more sticks of firewood. Then, she turned around and sat down by a tree trunk to rest. "Speaking of which, I heard some news that the 9th Imperial Concubine's eyes seem to be blind, right?" Wei Ling looked at Jingyu's actions. He looked at Jingyu's golden-green eyes and slowly narrowed his eyes. The coldness in his eyes carried a strong sense of scrutiny. "I thought you wouldn't ask. In the end, you couldn't help it." Jingyu's lips curled into a faint smile. She looked at Wei Ling with a smile and said, "It's just like what you see. My eyes." Jingyu raised her hand and pointed at her eyes. She looked at Wei Ling with a smile and didn't care about Wei Ling's reaction. She yawned and said, "Ah, what a headache." Chapter 1191. This is a secret that can't be revealed. Now that you know, should I kill you to silence you? Jingyu's golden-green eyes flickered as she spoke. The light was especially dazzling in the dark night. She glanced at Wei Ling with a murderous look in her eyes. Wei Ling's heart suddenly shrank. His pitch-black eyes slowly darkened. "Huh? You're scared." Jingyu laughed out loud when she saw Wei Ling's expression change. The smile in her eyes made one's heart tremble. Wei Ling frowned deeply. "Since I saved you, I naturally can't be bothered to kill you." Jingyu turned her head away and closed her eyes slowly. She looked like she was going to rest. Jingyu did this series of actions very naturally. Whether it was from the beginning of the conversation or the interaction between the two of them, each of them was guarded and probing. After all, they were enemies. But now, Jingyu's behavior gave Wei Ling a very strange feeling. He never knew that people could interact like this, no matter what purpose Jingyu had for saving him. When Wei Ling woke up in the morning, Jingyu was nowhere to be seen. He only saw a gray wolf lying lazily on the ground and licking its paws. When it heard Wei Ling get up, it glanced at him indifferently and turned its head back. Wei Ling finally understood. Was the gray wolf protecting him? He didn't need to think to know that other than Jingyu. Who else could do this? "You're awake?" A light voice sounded. Jingyu appeared in front of Wei Ling on the gray wolf with a cloth bag in her hand. Under Wei Ling's strange gaze, Jingyu poured out many fruits from the cloth bag. "They're all clean. Eat them." As Jingyu spoke, she reached out to eat the fruit and untied a basket from the gray wolf's body. "I've got some herbs. Wait a moment. I'll apply them on your wounds," Jingyu said as she quickly ate the fruit. Then, she took the bamboo jar and stirred the herbs. She walked towards Wei Ling. "It's a little painful. Bear with it," Jingyu said quietly as she unbuttoned Wei Ling's clothes and was about to apply the medicine. I can bear with this pain. Wei Ling was amused by Jingyu's words. It was the first time he heard someone speak to him like this. She was so careful when she applied the medicine. Huh, I'm afraid I'll cry out when I'm applying the medicine. That's embarrassing. Jingyu rolled her eyes. Although Jingyu's tone was harsh, Jingyu was very gentle when she applied the medicine. Seeing Jingyu carefully applying the medicine, Wei Ling's eyes changed. Done. Jingyu straightened up and rebandaged the wound. Only then did she wipe the sweat off her forehead. She heaved a sigh of relief and said, the external injuries are fine. Don't tell me you still have internal injuries? No. As Wei Ling spoke, his gaze landed on his robes. No wonder he felt that the cloth used to bandage his wound was very familiar. It turned out that, Jingyu turned her head and met Jingyu's gaze. She calmly looked away and said, well, I don't have anything to bandage my wounds with, so I can only use your clothes. Chapter 1192. Wei Ling's face darkened as he lowered his head in silence. Let's go. I'll send you back to the Cebu camp, Jingyu said as she walked towards Wei Ling and helped Wei Ling up. No. Who would have thought that Wei Ling would reject her and said firmly, we can't go back yet. Why? Jingyu was stunned. She thought for a moment and looked at Wei Ling with a conflicted expression. You weren't kicked out, right? Did you lose your position as the crown prince? Or were you assassinated? Jingyu was completely spouting nonsense, because this was simply the most common drama between princes. After Jingyu said this, Wei Ling's face instantly turned gloomy. Clearly, Jingyu had hit the nail on the head. Fuck, she was right. Jingyu's mouth twitched. She looked at Wei Ling and asked, how many princes are there in the Cebu? I almost forgot that the Cebu has more than one crown prince. Who else could it be other than my brother? Wei Ling's eyes were filled with mockery. He lowered his eyes and curled his lips into a disdainful smile. TSK, 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 the drama between the royal family is really scary. Jingyu didn't ask any more questions. She raised her hand and placed Wei Ling's hand on her shoulder. She frowned and said, since you're not going back to the Cebu, where are you going? I don't know. Wei Ling's answer was quick this time. I suddenly regret saving you. Jingyu's face darkened. Wei Ling was the crown prince of the Cebu and was an enemy. She couldn't bring him back to Jinling, but where else could she go? Jingyu temporarily brought Wei Ling to a secluded cave and settled down. Then, she began to think about her next move. In this forest, Jingyu could survive unscathed, but it didn't mean that Wei Ling could do the same. Therefore, in order to be cautious, Jingyu couldn't leave at all. She inexplicably felt that saving a person was like saving a bunch of trouble. Speaking of which, Jingyu could completely ignore Wei Ling and pretend that she didn't save him at all. However, Jingyu couldn't do it. In Feng, go and inform Xiao Chun. Don't let Xiao Chun worry about me. Jingyu thought about it and decided that she should inform Xiao Chun that she was safe. If this guy went crazy again and dug up the entire Roman forest, it would be fun. Roar! In Feng rubbed its head against Jingyu's hand and flew out of the cave. Wei Ling's eyes flickered when he saw this scene and heard Jingyu's words. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. His pitch-black eyes seemed to be brewing something. Not long after In Feng left, Jingyu suddenly heard a strange sound in the forest. Jingyu stood up abruptly. Her ears twitched, and the dagger in her hand appeared. Someone's coming. Jingyu turned around and said to Wei Ling, hide here and don't make a sound. I'll go and lure them away. Jingyu didn't care if Wei Ling objected. She waved her hand at In Jian and jumped onto his back. She covered the cave entrance and drove In Jian in another direction. Over here! Jingyu deliberately made some noise after she ran for a distance. Sure enough, she heard shouts and chased after Jingyu. Chapter 1193. After Jing Yu ran a distance away, she flipped down from Yin Jin's back and said, "You go this way. Bring your companions back." After speaking, Jing Yu's lips curled into a cruel smile, and she turned around and ran in the other direction. After many turns, some near and some far, she brought the group of people to a very desolate place. Originally, they could still see her as they chased after her, but after reaching this place, she disappeared in the blink of an eye. The group of men in black nervously tightened their grip on the long swords in their hands as they looked around. Just as everyone was feeling nervous, they vaguely felt something approaching them. When everyone saw the ferocious wolf head peeking out from the bushes, they were completely scared out of their wits. Their faces instantly turned pale. "Do you really think that it's so easy to enter the Roman forest?" A cold voice exploded in their ears. Before the group of black-clothed men could even identify where the person was, they suddenly saw a black shadow flash in front of their eyes. Then they felt a chill on their necks. Without even saying a word, they fell to the ground. You are." The other men in black saw that their companions had died and then looked at Jing Yu. The woman standing under the tree was dressed in tight black clothes, and the dagger in her hand was gleaming with a sharp light. Strange pupil." Jing Yu's lips curled into a devilish smile. She tilted her head slightly and looked at them from the corner of her eyes. The golden-green light was so dazzling. We've been discovered." Jing Yu's body moved slightly, and she slowly turned around. Looking at the group of men in black, she said indifferently, "Since you've discovered my secret, then stay here." Following Jing Yu's words, the wolf heads in the dense forest stood out one by one and surrounded the group of men in black. In this silent forest, a faint smell of blood permeated the air. Jing Yu's petite body stood coldly on the tree branch. Her indifferent eyes looked at the scene below. The scene of the gray wolf tearing apart the corpse made Jing Yu frown slightly. Then, she turned around and flew towards Wei Ling's location. Wei Ling was hiding in the cave vigilantly when he heard a commotion outside. When he looked up, he saw Jing Yu appear in front of him. "I thought you wouldn't come back." Wei Ling was slightly taken aback when he saw Jing Yu. He lowered his eyes and said, Jing Yu's face darkened when she heard this. Was she that kind of person? "If I had known, I wouldn't have come back," Jing Yu said as she crossed her arms and looked at Wei Ling. Then she said, "Let's go. It's not safe here. Let's go deeper into the forest." "Okay." Wei Ling responded and followed Jing Yu into the depths of the forest. It was easy to be discovered in the periphery of the forest, but not in the depths of the forest. It was just that most people didn't dare to go in. As Jing Yu led Wei Ling forward, they suddenly heard the familiar sound of a flute before they had gone far. The hurried sound of the flute was so frightening that Jing Yu's footsteps stopped abruptly. Flute sound? Jing Yu's face turned cold. Then, she straightened her body and carefully identified the direction of the sound. Chapter 1194. Wei Ling, wait for me here for a moment. Jing Yu helped Wei Ling hide behind a withered tree, then beckoned to Yin Jian. She leapt onto Yin Jian's back and dashed towards the direction of the flute sound. Wei Ling looked in the direction that Jing Yu had left and frowned. Flute sound? Why didn't he hear anything? Jing Yu dashed through the forest quickly. As Jing Yu got closer, the sound of the flute became clearer. Jing Yu's face turned cold. She leapt onto a nearby rock and saw the situation below. Yi Shui, who was covered in wounds, gripped the jade flute tightly. A few wild beasts were under the control of Yi Shui's flute sound and were engaged in battle with a group of men in black. Bai Jiu was leaning against a tree trunk behind Yi Shui and seemed to have suffered heavy injuries. "These bastards!" Jing Yu's eyes flashed with a cold glint. She beckoned to Yin Jian and charged towards the black-clothed man in the forest without hesitation. "Jing Yu?" Yi Shui saw Jing Yu suddenly appear and stopped playing the flute. He raised his hand to cover his chest, and his face turned pale. "Stop talking nonsense," and move aside. Jingyu waved her hand coldly at Yi Shui. Her golden-green eyes flashed, and the dagger in her hand slid towards the throats of the men in black. The wild beast did not stop biting. It's actually an otherworldly pupil. When the black-clothed men saw Jingyu appear, their eyes were filled with shock. "Boss, we can't hold on any longer," the other men in black said with difficulty. "Retreat!" The black-clothed men didn't hesitate and immediately planned to retreat, but Jingyu wouldn't give them the chance. Her eyes flashed slightly, and the beast suddenly jumped up and blocked their path. "Roar!" But what surprised Jingyu was that the men in black had something in their hands and sprinkled some powder on the wild beasts. Then, the wild beasts that were blocking the path suddenly collapsed. "What the hell?" Jingyu's heart trembled violently. Seeing the three black-clothed men running away, her eyes turned cold. The three blade-like darts in her hands suddenly flew out. Two of them hit the black-clothed man's lifeline, while the other one was dodged by the black-clothed man. It only pierced his back. "Damn it!" Jingyu's expression turned even colder when she saw the black-clothed man running away without stopping. Cough, cough. Yi Shui half-squatted beside White Nine. Her face was full of anxiety as she held White Nine and said, "White Nine, how are you?" White Nine glanced at Yi Shui and shook his head weakly, indicating that he was fine. Jingyu quickly walked over. Seeing White Nine and Yi Shui, her expression turned cold. She frowned and asked, "What's going on?" It's hard to explain in a short time. Yi Shui's expression turned serious. She looked at Jingyu and said, "Let's find a place to hide first." Countless men in black have entered the Roman forest. In the time that we were separated, we were attacked by more than 10 men. "Follow me." Jingyu did not expect the situation to be so serious. Her expression changed, and she helped Yi Shui help White Nine up. Then, they walked towards Wei Ling. In the blink of an eye, there was another injured person. Chapter 1195. Jingyu's mouth twitched. What was going on? When Bai Jiu saw Wei Ling, he smiled bitterly and helplessly. "Your Highness, I've implicated you," Bai Jiu said with a deep sigh. "I should be the one who has implicated you." Wei Ling's eyes were also filled with helplessness. He never expected things to turn out this way. "Both of you can stop for a while. What's going on?" Jingyu glared fiercely at Wei Ling. She turned to look at Bai Jiu, who looked like he was about to die. Without another word, she led the two of them into the depths of the forest. In the Roman forest, if Jingyu wanted to hide, how could anyone find her? He had underestimated Jingyu. In the depths of the Roman forest, Jingyu led the group of people on a non-stop journey for an entire day. When night fell, she brought the two of them into a pitch-black cave. This was the place where Jingyu often stayed when she was young. She hadn't been here for a few years now. There were no traces of living inside. Jingyu tidied up a little before helping the two injured people in. "Yi Shui, are you all right?" Jingyu looked at Yi Shui, who was bandaging her wounds. Her pale face made Jingyu a little worried. She frowned slightly and asked Yi Shui. One had to know that Yi Shui's sonic attack was very harmful to her body. "I'm fine. I'll be fine after some rest." When Yi Shui heard Jingyu's words, she lowered her head and bit on the cloth. After she was done bandaging her wounds, she looked up at Jingyu and replied, "You guys rest here for a while. Yi Shui, clean up Bai Jiu's wounds. Jian and I will go get some herbs and cover up the traces we left behind." Jingyu said to Yi Shui and turned to leave the cave. "Be careful." Yi Shui looked at Jingyu's actions and nodded slightly. "Don't worry. No one can hurt me in the Roman forest." Jingyu's lips curled into a cold smile as she turned and left. When Jingyu returned, the sky was already completely dark. Yi Shui's cave was lit with a weak flame. In fear of being discovered, she didn't dare to add more firewood. When she heard noises outside, she saw Jingyu come in. "It's fine. We won't be discovered in this area. Jingyu took a deep breath and took out the things she had prepared. She put the pheasant on the fire and started roasting it. She narrowed her eyes and said, "I'll let the wolves guard the hill. I'll know if there's any movement." After Jingyu finished speaking, she started to tidy up the things. After looking at Bai Jiu's wounds, she turned to Yi Shui and said, "Yi Shui, mash this herb and apply it to Bai Jiu. I'll change Wei Ling's dressing." "Thank you." Bai Jiu heard Jingyu's words and slowly said, "Don't thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank Yi Shui," Jingyu said without changing her expression. After Jingyu's words, there was a moment of silence in the cave. Yi Shui lowered her head and mashed the herbs. After taking care of the two injured people, Jingyu could finally breathe a sigh of relief. It had been a tiring day. "I've already notified Xiaochun. I wonder if Xiaochun can make it," Jingyu said as she ate and looked at Yi Shui, who was feeding Bai Jiu. "What do you plan to do?" Yi Shui turned to Jingyu and said, "There are too many men in black." Chapter 1196. It's no use. They won't give up until they find me. Bai Jiu frowned slightly, lowered his eyes, and said, "Who did you offend? Why are they chasing you so relentlessly?" Jingyu asked, staring at Bai Jiu and twitching the corners of her mouth. Yi Shui also turned her head and stared at Bai Jiu. Obviously, she also didn't know what had happened. "It's a long story." Bai Jiu frowned slightly and said, "It's all about the grudges in the Jianghu." "What? You mean these black-clothed men are all from the Jianghu?" Jingyu frowned, turned around, and stared at Bai Jiu, waiting for him to speak. "Yes." Bai Jiu sighed deeply and said, "Have you heard of the Darking sect?" "Huh? No." Jingyu thought carefully and found she had never heard of this name. In the Jianghu, the Darking sect is as famous as the Hades sect. Bai Jiu explained slowly. "After I escaped from the desert last time, I was seriously injured and was saved by the sect leader of the Darking sect. But I didn't expect that it would plant the seeds of evil." "Wait." Jingyu's brain shook violently. She stared at Bai Jiu with a strange expression and said, "The divine sect you're talking about, isn't it a woman? Then she likes you? She wants you to stay in the Darking sect?" "How do you know?" Bai Jiu asked in surprise, widening his eyes when he heard Jingyu's words. Jingyu's mouth twitched violently. She raised her hand and held her forehead helplessly. What should she do? How did she know? She guessed blindly. It seemed to be the same kind of cliché, but she didn't expect it to be true. It was true. "Then why did you become like this? Why didn't you obey me?" Jingyu fiercely suppressed the thoughts in her heart and blinked her eyes as she asked White Nine. White Nine's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He lowered his head and didn't speak. After a long silence, he said slowly, "I told the sect leader of the Dark sect that I already had a wife, and I would never betray her. But I didn't expect that the sect leader of the Dark sect would kill Yi Shui after hearing that. So, the news that I heard that you were in the imperial city of Tokyo was released by the Dark sect to lure me there?" Yi Shui's body shook violently. No wonder they kept chasing after her. Yi Shui had thought they were from the Holy Family or the Poison sect. "Yes." White Nine lowered his head and said, "How could I fall for such a despicable trick? In a fit of anger, I injured the sect leader of the Dark sect and escaped. But I didn't expect that she would poison me in order to keep me here." When White Nine said this, he slowly lowered his head, as if he didn't want to say anything more. His expression was a little stiff. When Yi Shui heard this, she suddenly clenched her fists. She turned her head and squinted at White Nine, her eyes full of worry. "I escaped and went all the way to the Roman forest. I was rescued by the Crown Prince here." White Nine didn't seem to want to say more and replied slowly, "I see." Jingyu nodded thoughtfully and said, So the people chasing you now are from the Darkeen sect? Baiju nodded and looked at Yishui. There was deep helplessness in his eyes. He said, "We can't let the people of the Darkeen sect find Yishui. Otherwise." Baiju's voice was filled with anxiety. Chapter 1197. It seems that it's too late to say anything now. Jingyu raised her hand to support her chin and said, "One of the members of the Darkeen sect has escaped. He must have exposed the news of you and Yishui. It's too late to tell him not to expose you now." Now? Baiju looked a little anxious. He looked at Jingyu and frowned slightly, saying, "I hope that the 9th Imperial concubine can help Yishui." What? Jingyu heard Baiju call her that. She blinked slightly and looked at Baiju with surprise in her eyes. The girl with different pupils is naturally the 9th Imperial concubine. Baiju seemed to have noticed the doubt in Jingyu's eyes. He lowered his eyes slightly and replied indifferently, "Ah, I forgot about my eyes again." Jingyu frowned discontentedly. It was really inconvenient that she couldn't hide her eyes. Then she stood up and said, "Yishui is my friend. I will help her even if you don't ask. It's just the Darkeen sect. Anyway, we already have the Poison sect and the Holy Family. It doesn't matter if we have one more." Jingyu shrugged her shoulders indifferently. Baiju and Wei Ling fell asleep after that. Jingyu sat at the entrance of the cave, playing with the dagger in her hand. Yishui also leaned against the wall and fell asleep. The night was dark. Jingyu gazed at the dark forest quietly. She didn't make any sound. When the gray sky lit up, Jingyu finally heard the sound coming from outside the forest. Jingyu, who had been guarding for the whole night, stood up slowly and looked toward the forest. In the depths of the forest, Jingyu saw a black shadow flash. Xiaochun. Jingyu's eyes lit up slightly. She smiled faintly and walked toward Xiaochun. "Are you okay?" Xing Er and Xing Yi followed closely behind Xiaochun. Yin Feng, who was leading the way, circled around Jingyu once before sitting down and panting. It was obvious that it was exhausted from the journey. "I'm fine." Jingyu raised her head and looked at Xiaochun. Her eyes curved slightly as she said, "I thought you would need some time to get here. Did you meet anyone on the way?" "Yes," Xiaochun nodded and said, "I already know that they are from the Darkeen sect. The Darkeen sect is not a big deal, but there is another group of people." Jingyu frowned and told Xiaochun about how she saved Wei Ling. Xiaochun frowned as well. "No wonder I saw a group of people who looked like trained men of sacrifice on the way. It turns out that they are from the Weizan." Xiaochun lowered his eyes slowly. "Weizan? Wei Ling's brother?" Jingyu blinked and looked at Xiaochun in confusion. "Yes." Xiaochun pulled Jingyu to sit down on a stone nearby and said, "The Cebu is different from the Tokyo. According to the rules of the Tokyo, the crown prince is the eldest son of the legal wife. The Cebu is different. In the Cebu, those who are capable can become the king of the Cebu." Wei Ling showed amazing talent from the very beginning and was made the crown prince. Wei Ling is ranked 5th in the Cebu. He is neither the eldest son nor the son of the legal wife, but he was made the crown prince. Weizan is the eldest son of the empress, but he was overshadowed by Wei Ling. Of course, he felt it was unfair. Xiaochun said slowly, "There was a rumor that Weizan intended to compete with Wei Ling for the throne, but it was just a rumor. I didn't hear anything about it." Chapter 1198. Now that you mention it, I remember that when Wei Ling went to battle, it was the best time for Wei to take action. Xiaochun said with a disdainful smile. According to Wei Ling's arrogance, I'm afraid that he didn't take Wei seriously at all. That's why he was tripped. Oh, it was a lesson for him. Xiaochun narrowed his eyes slightly. He didn't seem to be in a hurry at all. I see. Jingyu nodded. She had heard about most of the affairs of the royal family. Jingyu knew that there were countless fights between the royal family, no matter in which country. Outside this forest, there are assassins everywhere. What are you going to do now? Xiaochen paused slightly and asked Jingyu. Wei Ling's matter has nothing to do with me, but I have to save Yi Shui and Bai Jiao. Jingyu looked up at Xiaochen and said, what else can I do? Kill them. Xiaochen looked at Jingyu's relaxed expression. He rubbed Jingyu's head and said, don't underestimate the hierarch of the Darkeen sect. The Darkeen sect is not simple. Not simple? How is it not simple? Jingyu blinked her eyes in confusion and asked Xiaochen, the origin of this woman. Xiaochen frowned and didn't continue. Jingyu didn't hear Xiaochen finish. When she was about to continue asking, she heard Yi Shui calling her from behind. It was already dawn. Jingyu stood up and walked towards Yi Shui. Yi Shui saw Xiaochen and nodded to greet him. How are you? Do you feel better? Jingyu asked when she saw Yi Shui's face had almost recovered. Much better. Bai Jiao and Wei Ling are still resting. Yi Shui answered, you came at the right time. Let's talk about what to do next. Jingyu pulled Yi Shui away so as not to disturb Bai Jiao and Wei Ling. They sat down by the rock and began to discuss what to do next. It's not difficult for us to go out, but we can't do it quietly. Jingyu frowned and said, Xiaochen has just told us the situation outside. The Darkeen sect has surrounded this forest. It seems that they won't give up until they catch Bai Jiao. Wei Yin's people are even more ferocious. These two groups are wreaking havoc in the forest. It's too difficult for us to go out quietly. What's more, Bai Jiao and Wei Ling are injured. After hearing Jingyu's words, Yi Shui nodded in agreement and said, but if we can't go out, it's not a good idea to be trapped in the snake forest. So, Jingyu slowly raised her head and looked at them. Let's kill them and make them run away. Jingyu's words made Xiaochen and Yi Shui twitch their mouths. They looked at Jingyu speechlessly. What a strange idea. Yi Shui stared at Jingyu and said, do you really want to kill all these people? But besides this idea, is there any other way? Jingyu shrugged and said, do you want to sacrifice Bai Jiao and let the devil of the Darkeen sect take him away? Jingyu squinted at Yi Shui and said, Chapter 1199. Absolutely not. Yi Shui flatly refused without even thinking about it. That's it. We can't get out, and we can't hand him over. What else can we do but kill him? Jingyu stared at Yi Shui and said, Jingyu is right. Xiaochen said coldly, don't even think about talking to the sect leader of the Darkeen sect. You can't communicate with her. She might even kill you directly because you are Bai Jiao's wife. Yi Shui's pupils shrank slightly. She could almost imagine what kind of person the sect leader of the Darkeen sect was. She is really a female devil. Jingyu swallowed silently. The image of a furious devil appeared in her mind. She must be the kind of woman with a great figure, a super beautiful face, and a bloodthirsty heart. Damn it, she is so majestic. Jingyu swallowed silently. She thought that she could only look at this kind of woman, but never touch her. She was not someone who could be controlled by normal people. After a discussion, no decision was made. They could only take one step at a time. Yi Shui went to look for food, while Jingyu and Xiaochen stayed here. Jingyu finally noticed Xing Yi and Xing Er, who were standing aside. Xing Yi, long time no see. Jingyu greeted Xing Yi with a smile. She looked at Xing Yi from head to toe and said, are you okay? Thank you for your concern, madam. I am fine now. Xing Yi bowed to Jingyu. Ah, it seems that Qinggu is quite reliable. Jingyu sighed after hearing Xing Yi's answer. If Qinggu hears what you just said, he'll be hopping mad again. Xiaochen's lips curled into a faint smile. Huh. Jingyu also laughed out loud when she heard that. Her eyes were slightly curved as she sat on the rock and chatted with Xiaochen. Interrogation Officer 1 and Interrogation Officer 2 stood not far behind them and seemed to be chatting as well. Yin Feng lay lazily on the grass at the side and used his claws to stroke his fur. Wei Ling stood up with the help of the wall. When he was standing at the entrance of the cave, he saw this scene from afar. Jingyu's face was full of smiles, and Xiao Chen's gentle smile. He didn't know how long he had known Xiao Chen, but he had never seen Xiao Chen so gentle. As expected, Jingyu treated Xiao Chen differently. For some reason, Wei Ling felt a little envious when he saw Xiao Chen and Jingyu interacting with each other. That kind of envy. You're up? When Wei Ling lowered his head, Jingyu's voice sounded in his ears. Jingyu and Xiao Chen had stood up and walked toward Wei Ling. When Wei Ling heard Jingyu's voice, his expression changed slightly before returning to normal. Wei Ling responded to Jingyu. He tilted his head slightly and looked at Xiao Chen. His gaze was still sharp. Ninth Emperor's long time no see. Wei Ling's lips curved into a cold smile. He narrowed his eyes and called out to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen sized up Wei Ling with a mocking smile in his eyes. He said with interest, I never thought that the Crown Prince of Cebu would one day end up like this. Huh? The same goes for you. Tokyo, the Ninth Emperor's, aren't you living in a small town now? Wei Ling didn't care at all and replied calmly. Chapter 1200. Jing Yu's expression darkened. She didn't understand why the two of them were standing there and saying such strange things. You sick person, you should go back and rest. Jingyu pushed Wei Ling into the cave without another word. This impolite action instantly shattered the momentum that Wei Ling had managed to maintain with great difficulty. And you, what are you standing there for? I'm starving to death. Hurry up and get something to eat. Jingyu's tone made Xiao Chen touch the tip of his nose and turn around to look for food. The two of them were completely powerless against Jingyu. Their arrogant and despotic appearance just now had completely disappeared. Bai Jiu, who was by the side, saw this scene. His eyes were tinged with a faint smile as he looked at this scene. This ninth imperial concubine was truly not simple. Xiao Chen and Wei Ling were originally enemies, but at this moment, they didn't seem to pay much attention to each other. In the past, no matter when they met, Xiao Chen and Wei Ling didn't seem to back down at all. When the two countries were at war, the two of them were opponents who appreciated each other. When the two countries interacted, the two of them would also have a war of words. It was probably only when facing Wei Ling that Xiao Chen, a person who cherished his words like gold, would say a few more words. One had to know that Xiao Chen wouldn't even look at some people. What a fragrant rabbit leg. Lady Jingyu's skills are truly amazing. Wei Ling's complexion was clearly much better today. When he saw Jingyu roasting the meat, he said with a smile. Jingyu didn't care at all and responded with a grin. On the other hand, Xiao Chen's expression darkened. Did Crown Prince Wei injure his head? Jingyu is already the ninth imperial concubine. You should call her the ninth imperial concubine and not Lady Jingyu. Xiao Chen said as he grabbed Jingyu's waist and coldly looked at Wei Ling with his pitch-black eyes. Oh, is that so? Wei Ling wasn't willing to be outdone. He straightened his back and said, I heard that the Emperor of Tokyo, Xiao Yi, gave a verbal order a long time ago to take back the title of the Ninth Emperors. Huh? Xiao Chen said with gritted teeth. Even so, it doesn't change the fact that Jingyu is already my wife. Crown Prince Wei, shouldn't you call her Madame Xiao? Jingyu listened to the two's verbal battle and rubbed her forehead with a headache. You two, are you going to eat or not? Jingyu stared at the two people sitting beside her and asked. They're not eating, I'm eating. Bai Jiu silently reached out to take the rabbit meat, but Xiao Chun and Wei Ling instantly reached out and slapped her hand away. Who said we're not eating? Who said we're not eating? Xiao Chun and Wei Ling said this at almost the same time. Jingyu looked at the two strangely. When did the two of them have such good chemistry? They could even speak at the same time, especially when the two of them grabbed a rabbit leg and glared at each other. Jingyu inexplicably had a strange thought. Yi Shui and Bai Jiu silently ate their food. They also felt strange when they looked at Xiao Chun and Wei Ling. The two of them were like enemies. No matter what they encountered, they would criticize and argue. When it was time to apply medicine, Xiao Chun happily snatched it over and helped Wei Ling apply medicine. Then, when the medicine was applied, the two of them took off their clothes to compare their muscles. Chapter 1201. What the hell are they doing? Xiao Chen, are you still 3 years old? Jing Yu's mouth twitched. She couldn't understand what they were doing. The Ninth Emperors and the Crown Prince have a good relationship. Bai Jiu sighed with emotion when he saw Xiao Chun and Wei Ling acting like this. Who has a good relationship with him? Who has a good relationship with him? They said in unison again. Jing Yu shook the grass in her mouth silently. Why did she have a feeling that her husband was going to be taken away? It was so scary. Jing Yu swallowed her saliva silently. Should she take Xiao Chun back now and announce her status? Bai Jiu and Wei Ling were resting in the cave. Xing Yi stayed to protect them. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun went to the periphery of the forest. They needed to find out what was going on with the Darking sect. There are so many people. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun were hiding all the way. They saw groups of people passing by them quietly. Obviously, they were looking for them. Almost all the people of the Darking sect have come out, Xiao Chun said with a strange expression. It seems that Feng Yu is determined to catch Bai Jiu. Feng Yu? Why is the name of the sect leader of the Darking sect so strange? Jing Yu mumbled to herself. The group of people were hiding in the bushes. As they were talking, they suddenly saw Jing Yu and Second Xing take out a mask each. Why are you wearing a mask? Jing Yu asked, blinking her eyes. You wear one too, Xiao Chun said, and took out a veil to cover Jing Yu's face. But when he saw Jing Yu's eyes, he frowned and thought about when to put away the veil. Jing Yu didn't know what Xiao Chun meant. Be careful, Xiao Chun said, and then left in another direction with Jing Yu. Jing Yu couldn't understand Xiao Chun's behavior at all. But later, she understood why Xiao Chun had to wear a mask. Jing Yu and the others had almost finished their investigation. When they were about to go back, they were exposed by Yin Jian. Over here! Jing Yu and Xiao Chun heard a shout. They saw Yin Jian, who was holding a hair in his mouth. He was confused. Eat! Eat, eat! You only know how to eat. Jing Yu raised her hand and rubbed Yin Jian's head. The noise had attracted a large group of people. Jing Yu and Xiao Chun turned around and were about to run away. Hurry up! Stop them! Obviously, these people had set up ambushes in various places. When they heard the noise, they immediately surrounded Jing Yu and the others. Jing Yu looked at the people in front of her and frowned. Sect leader, I caught him. Just when Jing Yu and the others were looking serious, they suddenly heard a voice. Their faces froze, and they looked in the direction of the voice. They saw that the encirclement slowly opened up a path. Jing Yu opened her eyes wide. It was the sect leader of the Darking sect, the she-devil. Thinking of this, Jing Yu held her breath silently. She didn't know whether the sect leader of the Darking sect was as powerful as the Dongfang booby on TV. However, just when Jing Yu was looking at the sect leader attentively, a small and short girl walked out of the crowd. She had a cute face and a pair of black eyes. She stared at Jing Yu, Xiao Chun, and the others. Chapter 1202. Have you found my husband? Have you found him? Where is he? Where is he? The little girl jumped up and down happily in Jing Yu's eyes. Her eyes were full of joy as she looked left and right. Sect leader, aren't those two men your husband? A sect member reached out his trembling hand and pointed at Xiao Chun and Xing Er. When the little girl heard what the man said, she turned her head to look at Xiao Chun and Second Xing from head to toe. Then, she suddenly became furious. She jumped up and raised her hand to hit the man's head. Yes, because she was not tall enough. She had to jump up to hit the man's head. Jing Yu was shocked by the scene in front of her. She didn't come back to her senses for a long time. Are you out of your mind? How could these two men be my husband? My husband is so handsome. How handsome? How could he be these two ugly masked men? The little girl's coquettish words exploded in Jing Yu's ears. Masked men? Ugly masked men? Pfft. Jing Yu laughed out loud. Xiao Chun was described in this way. Even though Xiao Chun was wearing a mask, the side of his face was still very handsome. However, in this little girl's words, he became an ugly masked man. Moreover, this little girl was the legendary sect leader of the Darking sect. Where was the female devil? Where was the sexy and fiery one who swung a leather whip? At this moment, Jing Yu felt a deep resentment from the bottom of her heart. Sect leader, please spare my life. Your description is too difficult. I don't know how to find him. The subordinate was about to cry. Is it difficult to understand what I'm saying? I think you can throw away your ears. The little girl raised her hand and was about to give an order. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She turned to look at Jing Yu and Xiao Chun and said, "But these people." "You," the little girl said and pointed at Jing Yu. "Me?" Jing Yu blinked her eyes and stared at the little girl with a puzzled expression. "You are the one who hurt my second table, right? The imperial concubine with different pupils." The little girl frowned and stared at Jing Yu. "Second table?" At this moment, Jing Yu was dumbfounded. When did she hurt the table? "Sect leader, I'm not called table. I'm called Wen'erzhua." The man in black lowered his head and said. He was on the verge of tears. "Isn't it just table?" The little girl stared at Jing Yu and said, "Say it. Where did you take my husband? If you don't say it, I'll gouge out your beautiful eyes and play with them as balls." Jing Yu's face stiffened. She looked at the little girl who was threatening her, but didn't feel threatened at all. What to do? She almost couldn't hold back her laughter. "Little devil, your big brother Feng Ling didn't help you comb your hair again?" At this moment, Xiao Chun, who was standing on the side, suddenly said this sentence in an incomparably calm manner. "Ah!" The originally arrogant little girl screamed, as if she had seen a ghost when she heard this. She stared at Xiao Chun in horror and quickly hid behind one of her subordinates. Chapter 1203. Feng Yu was completely terrified. She stared at Xiao Chun with her big watery eyes and shouted, "Why are you perverted uncle here?" Xiao Chun laughed coldly and didn't say a word. This made the little girl hide behind him in fear. "Let me tell you, I can kill people now. If you dare to cut my hair again, I'll kill you." Feng Yu glared at Xiao Chun with a pair of large, menacing eyes. "Is that so?" Xiao Chun smiled calmly and said, "I think you'll definitely turn around and tell your brother Feng Ling, right?" I won't." Feng Yu heard Xiao Chun's words, and her face instantly turned red. It was as if Xiao Chun had poked her sore spot. She glared at Xiao Chun and said, "You still haven't answered me. Why are you here?" Jing Yu looked at this scene strangely. "I know." Before Xiao Chun could say anything, the little loli suddenly thought of something and suddenly jumped out and shouted, "You're with him? You snatched my husband away." Xiao Chun's eyebrows twitched, and he frowned. "You stinky king of hell. You stole my brother Feng Ling, and now you want to steal my husband. I'm going to kill you." As Feng Yu spoke, she pulled out a long whip from somewhere. She didn't give Xiao Chun a chance to speak and threw it at him without saying anything. "Damn it." Xiao Chun suddenly jumped away and dodged Feng Yu's whip. He frowned and glared at Feng Yu. "When did I steal your brother Feng Ling? You just stole my brother Feng Ling." Feng Yu didn't listen to Xiao Chun's words at all. She swung the long whip in her hand and fiercely attacked Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun dodged left and right. Obviously, he wanted to attack, but Feng Yu didn't care about Xiao Chun at all. The long whip in her hand approached step by step, not giving Xiao Chun any time to catch his breath. "Stupid girl, do you really think I can't do anything to you?" Xiao Chun abruptly stopped in his tracks. The moment he saw the long whip coming towards him, he raised his hand and grabbed the long whip. He pulled it hard under Xiao Chun's gravity pull. Feng Yu's face was full of shock. With a cry of surprise, she rushed toward Xiao Chun, And then Pa. Stupid girl, I will teach you a good lesson today. Let's see if you still dare. Pa. With a cold face, Xiaochen held Feng Yu in his arms without saying a word. He raised his hand and slapped Feng Yu's, but one after another. Wow! Stinky pervert! Stinky king of hell! Let go of me! Wah. After being caught by Xiaochen, Feng Yu unexpectedly burst into tears after being slapped. Jingyu. Yi Shui. The two of them were stunned by the turn of events in front of them. They had lost all their words. What was more frightening was that the disciples of the Dark Een sect looked at this scene with gloating smiles on their faces. What the hell? Isn't the little girl being bullied your sect leader? Shouldn't you be risking your lives to protect her? Why? Why is everyone laughing? Jingyu completely lost the ability to speak this time. Brother Feng Ling, help! Feng Yu struggled for a long time, but failed to break free from Xiao Chen's evil clutches. Then, she began to shout at the top of her lungs. Jingyu suddenly broke out in sweat, and the corners of her mouth twitched. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.